Sir, residents use the side gate. Delivery access is closed. The voice was crisp, clean, and colder than the morning air. It came from a woman in a white blazer dress, heels clicking against the slate pavement like punctuation marks. She stood at the security post with one hand resting on the access console, the other on her hip. Blonde bob, sunglasses despite the soft dawn light, and a radio clipped to her waist like it was a badge of honor. Her name was Ava Monroe, security manager of the gate at Beverly Hills Enclave. And in her mind, the man standing at the gate, he didn't belong. He wasn't in a Rolls. He wasn't wearing a suit. He wasn't even carrying ID. He was just standing there, black, tall, 52, sweat drying on a fitted Nike tee. His track pants still clung to his calves from the last stretch of his 5-mile run. No watch, no lanyard, no status markers, just presence. Ava glanced him up and down once more. Her lips curled slightly. Not quite a smirk, not quite a frown. I said, delivery access is closed. Use the visitor's lane down the hill. She didn't move, neither did he. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Marcus. He didn't answer right away. He stepped closer and past the yellow line. Just close enough for the motion sensor to buzz. The gate blinked red. Access denied. Ava's brow raised. Sir, you're not cleared to trigger that sensor. Step back. I live here, he said, voice low but certain. A beat, then a pause just long enough to be disrespectful. Ava tilted her head. An ambiance. She turned to her radio. Unit 3. I've got a male attempting to force sensor activation at Gate 6. No visible ID. Non-compliant tone. Possible squatter situation. Squatter. The word sat heavy, like smoke in a closed room. Marcus didn't flinch. His eyes scanned the garden edges. The marble plaque with his family crest engraved. Half covered by a low-hanging bougainvillea branch, he built this home. Chose every stone, every railing, every inch of that gate. But none of that mattered in this moment. What she saw was a black man in sweatpants, and that was all it took. Behind him, a delivery van pulled in florist branding, pastel pink. The driver slowed, saw the standoff, raised an eyebrow, and instinctively reached for his phone. Ava stepped forward now. If you're not off this property in 30 seconds, I'm calling LAPD. And trust Metro Spassing's not a light charge in this neighborhood. Marcus raised an eyebrow, finally speaking again. You always threaten residents like that. Or is it just the ones who don't show up in Bentleys? Ava's voice sharpened. Don't get smart. This is a private security matter. You're escalating. No, Marcus said, his voice calm. You are. From the corner of the street, the florist camera was already rolling, and the gate, still closed. But the clock on justice? It had just started ticking. Ava Monroe didn't blink. She wasn't just holding her position, no, she was performing. One heel forward, dress still pristine. Her voice just loud enough for the florist to catch it. You look lost, sir. This is private property. The gate buzzed again, still red. Marcus didn't move. He didn't raise his voice. But his eyes locked onto Ava's like he'd just flipped a switch inside her world. And she didn't realize it yet. I already told you, he said. I live here. Ava tilted her head. Amused, right? And I moonlight as a princess. She tapped the radio again. Unit 4, coming. I've got a 10 to 16. Repeat. Suspicious individual claiming residency. Might be impersonating. Approaching pedestrian gate without vehicle clearance. The code was fabricated, but the tone wasn't. Behind her, 2 more security officers emerged, one with a vest half-zip. Another still sipping coffee from a stainless mug. They slowed as they saw Marcus, brows knitting. Who's this? One asked. Someone who thinks he owns the place, Ava replied without breaking gaze. The man in the vest stepped closer, eyeing Marcus's shirt. You from maintenance? Before Marcus could answer, Ava cut in. He says he's a resident. We're still verifying. You could just ask his name, the younger guard started, but Ava silenced him with a glance. Marcus exhaled, slow and deliberate. I don't need to prove my identity to a woman who hasn't earned the right to question it. That's when Ava stepped closer, her voice dropping. Listen, sir, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but this isn't one of those gotcha TikToks. You're not getting viral off of me. Marcus gave a half smile, not amused, measured. This isn't for TikTok. This is for legacy. She flinched, but before she could fire back, the florist stepped forward slightly, voice tentative but clear. Hey, I've delivered to this address before. That's Marcus Hall, right? Ava snapped her head toward him. Sir, step back. This doesn't concern you. But it did now, because the name had been said out loud. Marcus Hall, a name that echoed across tech conferences, Forbes covers, and real estate summits. But without the suit and car, it was just not a name. Ava smirked. Marcus Hall, please, if you're so important, where's your ID, your badge, your driver? Marcus looked at her for a moment, then, finally, he reached into the zip pocket near his waistband and pulled out a phone sweet-slicked. Screen cracked at the corner. He dialed one number. Carla, he said, activate Protocol 7. Gate override. Verify ownership and open entry logs for Lot B. On the other end, a calm voice replied, confirmed, Mr. Hall. Executing now. The moment her voice said his name, how any of the guards shifted uncomfortably. The other lowered his coffee. But Ava, she laughed, a phone call. That's your power move. Anyone can hire someone to pretend. She turned toward the panel. Override or not, you're not walking through without my. Then it happened. The gate unlocked with a soft click, and above them, a voice echoed from the security speaker overhead. Gate override successful. Marcus D. Hall, primary resident, Beverly Hills Authority. Verified by Hall Tech OS. A hush dropped like a curtain. The florist lowered his phone, Ava's lips parted, just slightly. Marcus stepped forward. Still calm, he's still composed. Still home. Ava Monroe froze. Her fingers hovered near the control panel like they might rewind time if she just didn't move. The name ringing through the speaker, Marcus D. Hall, had hit the air like thunder in a church. But she recovered fast. Too fast. She turned slowly, eyes narrowing into defiance. Override or not, she snapped. You're not walking through. Behind her, the younger officer in the vest shifted. Mom, if that's his gate. I said not yet. Ava cut him off, her tone cracking. The system may have been hacked. We need to escalate this for internal verification. Marcus didn't respond. He didn't need to, because just then, the florist stepped forward again, phone still in hand, camera still rolling. You're really doubling down, he said, voice shaky but loud enough to carry. That gate just said his name. What else do you want? Blood sample. Ava turned sharply. I said step back, this is a restricted area. The florist took a step back, but only to pan wider, his voice now firm. Yo, whoever's watching this, take note. This man just got denied entry to his own mansion. Gate confirmed him. Security didn't. We still doing this in 2025. Another car pulled up behind the florist van, black Tesla, tinted windows. The driver rolled it down halfway. A Latina woman in her 40s leaned out. What's the holdup? She asked. The younger officer muttered, it's complicated. The florist turned to her. Not really. They tried to block the guy who owns the place. And now they're scrambling. The woman looked past him, eyes locking on Marcus. Then her face shifted. Oh my God, she whispered. That's Marcus Hall, from Hall Tech. Ava heard it, everyone did. And her control slipped just a little more. You can't just walk in because you say you live here, she snapped. Marcus turned to her now, his gaze steady, no heat, just pressure. I didn't say I live here, he said. Your system did. And unless you'd like to override your own protocol, I suggest you step aside. The silence that followed was loud. The young officer scratched the back of his head. Mom, we're supposed to follow system verification, aren't we? Ava's voice lowered, but not her venom. You want to let him in. Fine. When it turns out this was a mistake, it's your job on the line." He hesitated, then, quietly, stepped back. But Ava didn't move. She took a single step toward Marcus, too close, too defiant. "You think having your name in a computer makes you untouchable," she hissed. "People spoof access all the time, especially people like you." That's when Marcus spoke again. Not loud, not angry, just final. "People like me built this neighborhood." A gasp from the Tesla, from the florist. Even the barista walking past the gate with a tray of cold brew stopped mid-step. Because now it wasn't just defiance. It was history. It was presence. Ava blinked, and for the first time, she took a step back. Ava Monroe's heels clicked back once, then forward again, like she couldn't decide whether to retreat or double down. But pride made the choice for her. Her jaw tightened, her hand hovered near her radio again, and this time, she pressed it with deliberate force. "Unit 7, respond. Escalation at Gate 6. Possible impersonator. Notify LAPD dispatch." Immediate response requested. The words came sharp, surgical. The air shifted. Marcus Hall stood still. His hands remained at his sides, fingers relaxed, shoulders straight. But something behind his eyes, something colder, surfaced. "You just called the police," he said, not a question. Ava lifted her chin. "Yes, because in this neighborhood, we don't tolerate threats." "What threat?" The florist called from the sidewalk. "The man hasn't moved." "Exactly," the woman in the Tesla echoed. "He's the victim here." But Ava didn't turn. She was too deep now, too far to admit error. "You're just another trespasser with a story," she said to Marcus. "And I don't care what some automated voice said. If you don't leave the premises now, you're going to jail." Marcus blinked slowly. Then he reached for his phone again. No anger, just control. "Carla," he said, as calmly as one might order breakfast. "They've escalated. Activate phase 2. Full system audit. Real-time compliance log. Broadcast on my open channel." On the other end, his assistant's voice was cool and immediate. "Understood. Phased to live. All security footage sensing now. Your ownership record is front-facing. Gate logs archived. Ava Monroe's escalation has been time-stamped." The moment Carla said her name, Ava's face changed. Her spine straightened, but her mouth opened just slightly. Because now it wasn't just a man in sweatpants claiming a mansion. Now it was documentation. Now it was corporate oversight. Now it was her name being logged. Behind her, the junior officer's eyes darted. "Wait, is this serious?" "He told you who he was," the florist barked. "Y'all didn't listen." Another voice came from the sidewalk, a young black woman in workout gear, earbuds still in. "I live 3 blocks down. I've seen him jogging here every morning for 3 years." Ava spun. "This is not your concern." "No," the woman replied, "but it's yours, and you just made it public." Because phones were up now. Not just the florist's, not just the woman in the Tesla. 3 more, maybe 4. And Marcus? He hadn't moved an inch. He stood there as if the ground itself knew he belonged. The security gate buzzed again. Green. As if to remind everyone that the only thing broken here was Ava. The buzz of the gate echoed like a verdict. Green. But Marcus still didn't walk through. He stayed. Not because he had to prove anything, but because the moment wasn't finished yet. Not until it was seen. Ava Monroe stepped back from the console, her hand now visibly trembling, though she masked it with posture. The 2 officers behind her didn't speak. One of them, finally checking his tablet, muttered under his breath, "His name's on the deed." "What?" Ava snapped, turning. Marcus D. Hall, registered since 2017, owner of 3 adjacent parcels. That includes this gate, this house, and the one next door. Ava's jaw tightened. The florist lowered his phone for just a beat, then raised it again. "You mean to tell me you called the cops on the owner? On the guy who built the block?" Silence. Then the Tesla driver again. "This isn't about entry. It's about erasure." The phrase caught the air and stuck, because everyone heard it for what it was. Not an incident, not a misunderstanding. A ritual, one Marcus had lived through before. He took a step forward now, not through the gate, but closer to Ava just enough for her to see his eyes. "Do you know how many times I've been asked to prove I belong?" he said. "In my own company, in my own boardroom, in my own home." Ava didn't answer. She couldn't. He continued, calm and lethal. "You thought the gate gave you power, but it only showed your fear." Phones were up, comments were flying. The florist's live feed had crossed 3,000 viewers. Ava looked at the screen briefly, saw her own face frozen in suspicion, caught mid-command, mid-bias, and the algorithm wasn't on her side. "Unit 7, what's your ETA?" She barked into the radio, desperate for backup. No answer, because Carla's voice broke in this time louder, through Marcus's speakerphone. "Mr. Hall, LAPD was contacted. We've intercepted the call. Legal team is monitoring in real time. I've flagged Ava Monroe's employment record. 7 prior complaints, none escalated. Pattern noted." The words landed like thunder. One of the guards flinched. The other took a small step back. Ava's voice cracked for the first time. "You can't just override my authority." Marcus tilted his head. "You never had authority," he said. "Just a uniform and a gate, neither of which you control anymore." From the sidewalk, the woman in workout gear spoke again, louder now. "You don't get to erase a man just because he didn't dress like a CEO today." A murmur of agreement. The crowd wasn't big, but it was enough. Marcus looked past Ava, toward the mansion beyond the gate, 3 stories of glass and stone and silence. The home he designed, the life he earned. Then back to her. "I'm walking through this gate," he said, voice quiet but steel. "Not because I need to, because I always could." And with that, he stepped forward, through the gate, without permission, because he didn't need it. The moment Marcus crossed the threshold, the air behind the gate shifted, not just physically, emotionally. It was no longer just about who could enter. It was about who dared to stop him. Ava Monroe didn't move. Her hand, still clenched near her radio, hung like it had lost its purpose. Because it had. Marcus stood just past the wrought iron gate now, sunlight catching the fine sweat still clinging to his jawline. He didn't gloat, didn't smirk, but his presence filled the courtyard like a verdict that needed no judge. From behind, the florist's voice rang out. "You did that just happen?" The woman in the Tesla replied, almost whispering. He walked through like gravity followed him. Inside the security booth, one of the officers pulled up something on his device. "Ava," he said, his voice now cautious, "you might want to see this." She didn't turn. "Just say it," Marcus said, calm, cold. The officer hesitated, then read out loud. "Marcus D. Hall, founder and CEO of Hall Tech Systems, board member of Clarion Financial, majority shareholder of Westridge Estates Management, which owns this community." The silence that followed wasn't silence. It was impact. Ava finally turned, her face pale now but trying, still, to hold some shred of structure. "I didn't know," she said. Marcus didn't blink. "You didn't ask." He stepped closer. "You just profiled the man who signed your checks." That it, like glass cracking beneath high heels. Behind her, the junior officer quietly took off his earpiece. The second one backed away entirely. Shaking his head, the florist turned his phone around to face himself, speaking into the lens. "All right, TikTok. This is going viral. Black CEO, locked out of his own mansion. By a woman who thought sweatpants meant squatter." Marcus didn't move. He didn't need to, because now Ava was shrinking. Not physically, not yet, but publicly. She opened her mouth to say something, maybe an apology, maybe an excuse, but another voice interrupted her. Carla's, still on speaker. "Mr. Hall, the override is complete. All security feeds from Gate 6 have been archived. Compliance department is reviewing Ava Monroe's behavior. Legal recommends suspension pending internal investigation." Ava's eyes widened. "You're seriously?" Marcus cut in. "This isn't revenge. It's accountability." Then, turning to the officers, "You've got two choices. Stay aligned with her or realign with the truth." Neither answered. They didn't need to, because when Marcus walked further into his own property, neither of them followed Ava. They followed him. And as the florist whispered to his phone, "That's how you fire someone without saying the word fired." Ava Monroe didn't know where to stand. She was still technically the manager of security, but suddenly, her orders carried no weight. The gate obeyed someone else. The officers followed someone else. And the man she tried to erase had just walked through her perimeter without flinching. She looked down at the radio in her hand. It used to be her weapon. Now it was just plastic. The junior officer cleared his throat. "Ma'am, you need to step away from the panel." Ava turned slowly. "Excuse me." "You heard him," the other officer said, more firm now. "He owns this block, and legal's already flagged this incident. We're not putting our names on this." For a second, her lips parted like she might argue, but the confidence was gone. All that remained was posture, and it was unraveling fast. From the sidewalk, the crowd had grown. More cars had pulled over. Someone was live streaming from a park bike. Another woman mid-50s, clutching a yoga mat, called out from the side. "He built those condos on La Brie, didn't he, Marcus Hall?" A man in a baseball cap responded, "That's him. Halltech. He's a billionaire." Ava turned slowly back toward Marcus, who had now stopped near the fountain in his driveway. His back to the gate. He didn't need to look at her. The house behind him, 3 floors of brushed steel and stone, seemed to echo his stillness. "Mr. Hall," she started, voice straining for something human. I didn't mean for this to escalate," he said, still not turning. "You did everything but listen," he said. "You called me a threat before you asked a single question." She tried again. "It's protocol. We've had incidents, people sneak in, falsify access." "Did I sneak?" he asked, finally turning. His voice wasn't raised. It didn't need to be. "Did I lie? Or did I just not fit the picture in your head?" The silence clung to her like humidity. Then Carla's voice came through again, clear, clinical. "Mr. Hall, Internal Security has requested authorization to proceed with standard disciplinary review. Would you like to initiate formal termination?" Ava took a sharp breath. Marcus looked at her, right at her, and for a second, just a breath, she thought maybe he wouldn't do it. Maybe he'd walk inside, let it go. But he didn't. He spoke slowly, measured. With immediate effect, Ava Monroe's credentials are revoked. He paused. "Terminate access to gate control, building entries, comms, and personnel files." Ava gasped. "Wait," but the panel beside her let out a dull buzz. Its screen went black. The radio in her hand crackled once, then died. "No, no," she tried again, slapping buttons that no longer responded. Her badge clipped neatly to her dress flashed red. She looked down at it like it had betrayed her, but it hadn't. It had simply remembered who was in charge. Marcus turned fully now, facing her across the gate. "You didn't just misjudge me," he said. "You misused power. And you forgot people like me don't need to yell to be heard." Behind her, someone clapped, then another. Then the applause spread, soft at first, then louder. Not a roar, not a chant, just a rising acknowledgement that something wrong had just been corrected. Ava Monroe stood frozen, powerless, not because she'd lost control of the panel, but because she never really had it. Ava Monroe was still standing, but only in the physical sense. Her badge now flashed red in quiet defiance, like it was ashamed to still hang from her lapel. The gate console behind her blinked twice, then powered down, completely disabled by remote override. She opened her mouth again, desperate for control. "I've worked here for 5 years," she stammered. "You can't just erase me like this." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Erase you?" He took one step forward. "You erased me the moment you saw sweatpants instead of ownership." Carla's voice returned louder now, piped through the entire perimeter PA system. "Mr. Hall, system reset authorization is ready. All previous access hierarchies linked to Monroe's ID will be removed. Senior access may be reassigned. Do you wish to proceed?" Ava turned toward the speaker as if she could stop the signal with a glare. Marcus didn't even look at her. "Proceed," he said flatly. And with that single word, the ecosystem shifted. Across the estate, magnetic locks realigned. Entry logs began to flash across the central hub, each tagged with her badge number and the words, "Access revoked." The young officer who had once followed Ava took a step back, muttering, "Damn." The florist whispered, "This is bigger than security. He's resetting the whole system." Marcus pulled out his phone again. The screen glowed blue and silver, the interface of Halt echoes humming in his hand. He tapped once, then again. "Carla," he said, "connect to Westridge boardroom. Add Clarion Legal. Tag the HOA head." Carla's voice, "Already connected, sir. They've been watching since Ava made the call." That was when Ava's face truly changed. "Watching." "Mr. Hall," she said, voice barely stable. This is a misunderstanding. The board." Marcus didn't let her finish. "You called police on a verified homeowner without cause. You initiated a lockout without escalation protocol. You ignored confirmation from your own system. And now you're asking for mercy after accountability arrived." Ava took a step back. "Please, just let me explain." Marcus looked down at his phone as Carla's voice returned. "Sir, Board of Westridge has voted unanimously. Ava Monroe's management privileges have been permanently revoked. Legal has initiated breach documentation for wrongful detainment and bias-based misconduct." The final word echoed through the courtyard. "Misconduct." Ava stared blankly at the blacked-out gate panel, then to her radio still dead, then to Marcus, and for the first time, her voice broke. "I didn't know who you were." Marcus's response came without pause. That was the problem. He looked back toward the house. "Reset the system," he said, more to himself than anyone. "Then louder, not for Ava, but for everyone watching." From the top down, phones were still up, but now, they weren't filming chaos. They were filming justice. And in the middle of it all, a man in sweatpants, calm, clean, undeniable, was quietly reclaiming every inch of power they thought he left behind. When he stepped out for a run, by now, the entire street had stopped moving. Cyclists dismounted. Dog walkers paused mid-stride. Drivers rolled down their windows, not to honk but to listen. What started as a minor confrontation at a mansion gate had become a live broadcast of dignity in real time. The florist, now sitting on the curb, still recording, murmured into his phone. The man didn't raise his voice once, and still changed everything. On screen, the live stream ticked past 28,000 viewers. Comments flooded in. "This is how real power walks. Never judge a CEO by his hoodie." She tried to guard the gate, but he owned the land. Just then, the woman with the yoga mat stepped forward, holding her phone like a mic. "Mr. Hall," she said gently, "do you mind if I ask one thing?" Marcus turned, polite but guarded. She continued, "How do you stay so calm, even when someone tries to erase you?" He looked at her for a moment, then gave the kind of answer that felt like it had been forged through years of experience. "Because every time I've been underestimated, I learned something about the people doing the underestimating." He paused, "And every time I stayed calm, I remembered, storms don't shake foundations. They just test them." The woman nodded slowly. Someone behind her whispered, "That's going in my yearbook." Laughter rippled, not the kind that mocks, but the kind that heals. From across the street, a teenager in an apron, barista, maybe, shouted out, "Yo, Mr. Hall, my older brother interned at Hall Tech. He said you visited every floor, even the janitor stations." Marcus smiled lightly. "Tell him I said thank you. Those are the real engines of the building." More nods, more phones raised, but none felt intrusive now. They felt like witness, like documentation. A Latina mother in a minivan honked softly, then waved her phone out the window. "My daughter's doing a report on Black innovators. She's watching you live. She just wrote your name down." Marcus's voice was low, but it carried. "Tell her to make her own name too." A murmur of wow rolled through the street, and somewhere behind it all, Ava Monroe stood silent, still present, still watching, but now unseen, because the story had moved on. It was no longer about her failure. It was about his endurance, his restraint, his presence. And as the sun crept higher above Beverly Hills, its light catching on glass, pavement, sweat, and screamed. Something else became clear. This wasn't just a moment of justice. It was a model. The courtyard had gone still. Not quiet, just still. Like the moment knew it was ending, but wanted to stretch just a little longer to be felt. Remembered, Marcus Hall stood at the base of the marble steps, the glass facade of his home behind him. His breathing had slowed. No sweat now. No heat. Only gravity. He turned back once, scanning the people gathered outside the gate. Not fans. Not followers. Witnesses. A chorus of perspectives, different faces, ages, colors, all brought together by one miscalculation and one response. Then, from behind the hedge line, a reporter's voice emerged. Local, young, shaky but eager. "Mr. Hall," she called out, "do you have anything you want to say to those watching? To anyone who's ever been treated the way you were today?" Marcus looked directly into her camera. No rehearsed speech. No podium. Just a man in running shoes and dignity. He took one step forward, adjusted nothing, then said, "They didn't try to stop me because they knew who I was. They tried to stop me because they didn't. And that's exactly why I built what I built." He let it land. People leaned forward like the words had weight. He continued, "I didn't raise my voice. I didn't throw punches. I just stood still and the system moved." Then the closer. The line that cut, quiet as a blade. You don't evict power from its own home. Phones went up again, not for scandal this time, for record. The florist whispered, "Yup, that's the quote. That's the one." The woman in the Tesla turned to her daughter, still watching from FaceTime. "That line. Frame it." The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't need to, because what they witnessed wasn't performance. It was precedent. Marcus gave a final nod, then turned and walked up the steps, each footfall echoing like punctuation on a sentence he'd been writing his whole life. No door slammed. No security flanked him. He disappeared into his home like a king returning to his chamber. Because that's what he was. Not just the owner, but the architect of his own belonging. And for everyone watching, one thing was now undeniably true. Presence isn't granted. It's claimed. The door clicked shut behind him. Not loud, just certain. Inside, the house was quiet, the kind of quiet you earn. No echoes, no alarms. Just a slow return to stillness. Marcus Hall stood in the foyer, letting the cool air wrap around his skin like silk after fire. He didn't go straight upstairs. Didn't grab a towel. Didn't reach for water. He just stood, still, breathing, letting the moment settle into his bones. His eyes drifted upward, to the tall portrait hanging above the curved staircase, black and white. Soft matte finish. It was his mother. Sunday dress. One hand on her hip, the other resting on a Bible. Her eyes forward, shoulders squared. A pose not for vanity, but for defiance. She was never allowed inside the front doors of the buildings he now owned. But he kept her face above every threshold, as reminder, as witness. He closed his eyes, and the memory came easy to easy. 7th grade, South Side Chicago. He'd worn his cousin's blazer, 3 sizes too big, to attend a science expo at the city center. He remembered standing in the lobby, waiting for the rest of his class, and the guard, big, white, irritated, pointing at him without asking a name. "You don't belong in here. This ain't for you." He hadn't said anything back then, just turned around and walked outside. The air had felt cold, but the silence had felt colder, because the words never left him. They followed him to college, to every pitch meeting where someone asked if he was the assistant, to every elevator ride where his presence made others clutch purses tighter. And today they showed up again, at his own gate. But this time, I didn't shrink. He whispered it to the hallway like a vow delivered late, but right on time. This time, I didn't explain myself. Didn't apologize for arriving unannounced. Didn't leave my dignity on the curb. He opened his eyes again. The foyer greeted him back. Still here. Still his. He walked toward the window and pulled back the curtain. Outside, the crowd was slowly fading, dispersing, but forever changed. The florist gave a nod to the camera one last time and ended his stream. The barista waved from the corner. A little girl pressed her hand to the gate, staring in silent awe. Marcus watched for a beat, then whispered one more truth, not for the camera, not for the crowd, just for himself. I didn't build all this to be seen. I built it to be undeniable. Marcus Hall turned away from the window. The world outside was already shifting back to normal, or some version of it. But inside, in this house of stone, steel, and legacy, time moved differently. He walked slowly down the hallway, each footstep soft against the hardwood, passing framed photos. His first server rack in a rented garage. The ribbon-cutting ceremony at Halltech HQ. His daughter's graduation. His son's first patent. A life built brick by brick. But today wasn't about what he built. It was about what he refused to let anyone take away. He stopped near a side table where an old leather notebook sat, worn edges, pages heavy with ink and vision. He opened it to the first page. His handwriting, 13 years younger, still sharp. Legacy is not what you leave behind. It's what they can't erase while you're still here. He ran a finger across the words, and then, like speaking to the next soul watching, waiting, doubting, he spoke. Low, steady, not for applause, but for impact. If you're watching this and you've ever been questioned, ever been overlooked, ever been told you didn't belong, let me tell you something simple. He paused, eyes up, voice firm. You don't have to raise your voice to raise the standard. He closed the notebook gently. Presence is power, and you don't need permission to walk in your purpose. One last breath. Then he looked directly at the camera one final time. No lights, no edits, no flash. Just the truth. Next time someone guards a gate, remind them, you own the land. He turned, walking toward the back patio where the sun had begun to dip. And as the light poured through the glass, one final phrase hovered in the air, like smoke from something sacred. They didn't just underestimate a man. They misunderstood a movement.